Hey guys, Eric and Joshua here to talk about Game of Thrones, the ninth episode, the big ninth episode of Season 4, Watchers on the Wall. Here's your spoiler alert. We're about to go all the way in on what happened on it. Like I said, episode 9, always a very big one, important one in Game of Thrones. So a lot of expectations going in.
Yeah, known for being a game changer, but I didn't feel like this one was a game changer. So I had giant expectations.
All right.
I'm sorry, I did that. But I don't think they were met.
So Matt Fowler reviews the show for us, and he loved this episode. He gave it a 10, but he even said in his review he kind of knew people might be split on it. I looked online last night. People were split on it. A lot of people dug it, but some people said, yeah, it didn't quite deliver. And a lot of that, might have to do with how much we care or don't care about the characters at the wall. So was that an issue for you? What did you think?
It was. This story's sort of been brewing for the entire show. Like, some people on the other side of the wall, and the wall, like, they're defending it. And also just like the romance at the heart of it with like Jon and Ygritte was very, that was so long ago that it was hard to be reminded like, oh yeah, they did have that thing in the cave and that was really nice. But those feelings weren't like fresh in our minds.
Yeah, I will say, I didn't like 100% love this episode. I really dug it though, purely on a spectacle level. This was a big episode. They brought back Neil Marshall, who directed Blackwater, and it was very similar in that it was like one location, and we're gonna just go all in, and it was huge as far as an episode of Game of Thrones goes.
Yeah.
And
it was pretty impressive.
Very impressive, and like big action set pieces. I understand though, it's like there is a bit, except for Jon and Sam, we weren't really invested in all those guys. Pip and Gren. It's like I had to like look up exactly who was who and the names. And I've read the books, but I don't think the show had fully fleshed out those characters.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. And especially over 4 seasons, you think you would have like a better, more attachment to them. But I will say when Gren, he was defending the gate from the giant with his other brothers of the Night Watch, that scene gave me chills as they were like doing the oath as the giant was charging. I thought that was great. And what did you think of how Jon and Ygritte's final moments there?
I thought it was a little too TV. It was a little too obvious that she would say, nothing, Jon Snow, which I don't believe she does in the books. And so it was I don't know. I liked in retrospect, I had to be reminded of this, but the fact that the kid who killed her, she killed his dad. That was actually kind of a nice, full circle thing, because as much as, yes, I did like Ygritte as a character, and, I felt bad for her and Jon, even though it's true that was in the past, she kind of deserved to die after she'd killed all these people, and so for her to specifically be killed by a kid whose father she'd taken, well, that worked. But yeah, her and Jon, their final moment, unfortunately, didn't really get me. But I'll say I totally agree with you about Gren. That was really cool, them saying the oath and then coming back and seeing that he successfully stopped this giant at the expense of his life.
Yeah, and I really loved the giants. Those were so cool. They had the mammoths and everything.
Yeah.
And the giant bows that it just knocked that guy off the wall and he came back down, and that was just incredible. But as far as things, as characters go, I think this was Sam's episode in a lot of ways. That I really, really liked his material, and even his conversation with Maester Aemon was great. And he said, what was Aemon's line about? He's he was thinking of his girl, and it's this old blind man being like, oh, this girl, she's more real than you are, and sort of seeing this before the end, they all think they're gonna die, he's seeing this woman again, and he says, he also has another line that, what does he say? Gosh, it's he says that
Gilly.
Master Aemon. He says that love is the death of duty.
Yeah.
But really, that's what spurred Sam on to save and fight and inspire other people to fight. So I thought it was great.
I thought it was a really good episode for Sam too. Because it was he got the girl, as it were. He got his kiss. He got to be brave, but not over the top, where we wouldn't buy that this is Sam. But he was he was going to do his duty and go and fight with his brothers. Mostly reloading, which was made sense for what would they give Sam to do.
Right.
But then he got to kill one guy with the crossbow. But I also say, Jon Snow is an interesting character because I've seen some criticisms that of the main characters, and Jon is certainly one of the main characters, he's the blandest, he's the one some people say they're least invested in. I guess I would, in some ways, agree in that he probably is the least dynamic, but I still really like Jon.
But he's got great hair.
He's got great hair. Jon is interesting because on a show that's all about messing with your perceptions and the characters who are very morally gray, he is the last, virtuous hero left, right? It's like Ned Stark is dead, and Robb is dead. So Jon is like the last like classic hero on the show.
This is true.
And I do like him in that role. And I thought this was a good episode for him too. They didn't go too over the top with it again. Like he didn't have a big rousing speech. Thorne got a speech, who's been kind of a jerk, but Jon didn't get a speech. But Jon, he just did what he had to. He fought hard, and I was definitely like rooting for Jon, you know, through this whole. So I guess that's why I really enjoyed this episode, even though I do understand why it didn't really have that weight that we've come to expect from episode 9.
Yeah, if you look at Blackwater, it had so much going on with all the Lannisters. Like Cersei was going to end it all with poison, and Tyrion got like betrayed, but also he had to like save his family before doing that, and that's what he got for his efforts. Then there was the huge like power play with the Tyrells coming to help. So much happened, and you know the Lannisters have really gotten they've been really developed, you know, throughout this entire show.
Yeah.
But where this was like, okay, there's a fight. And we don't really get to see the outcome, and so I don't know. So it does feel like we're sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Kind of thing.
Because I mean, you know, going in, it's not like, even if you haven't read the books, I don't think anyone was shocked that Ygritte died, because you figured either her or Jon would have to die, right? I mean, they're literally going to fight each other.
Work,
It wasn't going to work, so her death isn't going to have the, oh my god, twist of other deaths on the show. And you're absolutely right. Like, by the end of the episode, even Jon, he literally points out that, hey, we just won this fight, but there's thousands more guys out there, so we haven't really finished anything.
Right.
So it doesn't have that, like, everything's different, even with, besides Blackwater, like Ned dying or the Red Wedding, which were other episode 9s. Those clearly changed the course of the show. This did not change the course of the show. It was really, almost the Game of Thrones summer movie spectacle episode. You mentioned, I did love too, the giants with the bow, the giant sort of spike that knocks. That was great.
And then the hands just
the hand, great. The streak of blood. It was just big on that level, and I'm not saying like I wouldn't want that every week from Game of Thrones, and they couldn't afford it every week. But I did think it was kind of cool for them to go all out. A lot of people complain, oh, they don't show us the big fights. They could never do this every week. But this was like, let's really kind of go spectacle. And I did think it delivered on that level, even if it wasn't, an episode I think I'll remember as far as like, wow, everything really changed, in that one. Let us know what you thought, though. Obviously, a lot of thoughts on this episode, Game of Thrones in general. Next week's the finale. So did you think that this was what you wanted from episode 9? Did it deliver? Did you want a little more? And we'll be back next week to talk about the end of season 4.